Well, hello. We have Camille and Eloise with us today from Domaine Saint Amant. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us, for inviting us.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the Discovery Pack or the Pack Découverte, which is being offered by Domaine Saint Amant. And using the code Girl Meets Glass, you get a discount and, drumroll, free delivery in France. So you definitely want to snatch this pack up. And we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of the wines that are in the pack. The first one is the Borry, which is a white wine. I have mine here. Ta-da. And there's there. I'm going to pour a little bit of this.
We'll do the same.
Here, would you like to get into a little tasting? And we can talk a little bit about the wines.
Very good idea. Absolutely.
Great. We're starting with the first one. This is the Borry, or say it for me with a French accent, please.
Excellent accent. Borry.
Okay. So I can see that it's white. I'll let you tell us the rest.
Okay, yes, it is a white wine indeed. The grape, I'll tell you about the grape first, is Viognier with very little bit of Roussanne, but 90-95% Viognier, so really very much Viognier.
And Viognier is, of course, a very aromatic grape. So when you put your nose in there, everything you can smell is exuberant. It's fruits, it's flowers, it's very delicate, but pungent at the same time.
I think there is a little bit of quite citrus in it, but not too much. And then maybe a bit of apricot. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely citrus, a little bit of apple, but not too much, quite delicate. I would say a bit of peach, nectarine. I'm thinking something quite orange. Not quite apricots, but maybe more nectarine. It has that ripeness and the warmth of an orange fruit.
Yes.
So nectarine is probably quite a good one.
And I like that it has like a roundness or a fullness to it, but then you also do get some hints of citrus in there. So it's not so overpowering in the mouth. It's very well balanced with a full roundness and then also like a sharp citrus note kind of at the end. I like that. People don't drink Viognier enough. Some people, I don't know what their problem is. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they're turned off from aromatic wines, but not me, luckily.
No, and this one has a lovely acidity as well to balance the fruit.
Yeah.
And that will be partly the altitude, it will be the level of ripeness at which we pick the grape. But you end up with something that's very exuberant but still quite tight. It has a certain depth to it, which will come from the acidity in the wine.
Which you feel when you drink it, I think, because it's very exuberant in the nose, but in the mouth, I find it a bit more fresh. This freshness comes out a little more than the power or the
exuberance.
The exuberance, yes, exactly.
She was like, exuberance, yes. That's the Now, Camille, you mentioned before that Viognier, you are growing Viognier there because your father started it, because he liked it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. My dad loved very much the wine from Condrieu, which is further north in the Rhone Valley, and he enjoyed it a lot. And when he had in his mind to start a wine business here, he met an enologue from Château-Lampipart who told him you should, without knowing that he loved Viognier, but he told him you should grow a white grape and Viognier would be perfect because you're higher with a good freshness and it's quite unusual here. So my dad was completely thrilled by the idea, and that's what he did. Yeah, he decided to. I mean, the process took in time. He bought some vines, he ripped them off, and then he planted the Viognier. That was the first time. The first year was 1992.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he went on for maybe 6 or 7 years, planting here and there. All the vines are in Suzette, but they're really spread spread out.
Okay.
On
Is it
slopes.
fairly easy to grow Viognier in Suzette and at the altitude you're at? Because usually in Southern Rhone, I'm not, or maybe it's just me, I don't see too often Viognier as a large quantity in the white wines.
Well, it's known to have not very big yields. It doesn't produce a lot. It does during maybe the 5, 6, 7 first years, and then the yields tend to go down. That's one thing. Then in the south, it's quite, as we said, an exuberant grape. And if there is too much sun, then it might become heavy or
A bit cloying.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you don't have that much over here. It's very special. So to be in altitude is going to stop that effect of the heat and going to suit well the grape. But we are quite higher. We're very higher. The grapes are between 400 and 600 high, which is quite high for the.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's very important. I think in feet it is 1500, between 1500 and 1800 feet. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. And now the yield and how high it is and how that lends to some of the flavor profile that you get in Viognier. We mentioned we got some nice acidity. We do have some roundness. It's very aromatic. What should we pair this with as far as eating? What should we be eating with this wine?
I don't know. Do you have
There's a range of different things. You can start with aperitif, which I guess is the straightforward one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have, I guess, all sorts of nibbles. If they're fish-based, it will go really well with it. It will go quite well with cheese. It's quite delicate, so I guess most sort of snacks, as long as they're not too strong.
Okay.
Then if you're going to have a meal, it will go really well with fish, seafood, quite fine seafood, quite delicate foods. Again, nothing too strong or too overpowering. I guess grilled fish, maybe a little bit of grilled chicken, but I wouldn't go too far down the meat side.
Okay.
And with cheese, quite delicate cheese as well, maybe a little bit of comté. Like dessert, I think I would hold off. The sweetness of dessert might be a bit hard to pair with this wine, which has the acidity and the exuberance of the fruit, but without any sweetness to it. I think dessert you might want to hold off.
And may I say oysters?
Yes, like I just had the other day. Okay, I'll have to go get some oysters since I have this open now. I'll have to grab some oysters.
You like oysters?
Yes, I do. And I didn't at first. Well, I can't say I didn't. It just wasn't something that I was that into before I moved to France. I wasn't, I guess I just didn't have access to raw oysters like that. We would have them like oysters Rockefeller, which is like a bunch of cheese with them in a dish, or fried oysters. But now that I'm here and have access to raw oysters and people order them a lot or they just have them at their home to share, oh, I love them. They're delicious. Like, delicious.
The consistency of the oysters will go well with the texture of that wine too.
Okay.
Not just the taste or the smell, but also the consistency.
Yeah, the consistency and also like the salinity, kind of like that saltiness that you get in the oyster. That would be really nice with this because this is a little soft, so you will have that contrast. I'm glad you mentioned, Eloise, about how this, while it is aromatic, it isn't something that you want to pair with dessert. Some people would think that because of the smell, because it's aromatic, that might make the flavor sweeter and they have a different expectation. Can you tell me a little bit about how, not necessarily how that works, but why that isn't necessarily the best pairing or the best thought? Oh, it smells aromatic, it's a sweet wine.
I can try. I think the main thing is with a sweet smelling wine, but that's actually dry, there is no residual sugar in the wine. which means that your palate is going to be far more preoccupied with things like acidity. And if you eat something sweet, your palate's not going to be expecting it. And then when you return to the wine won't be sweet enough. You won't be actually able to taste any of the wonderful aromas. All the fruit flavors will have gone, and you might taste a little bit bitter as well. The wine will seem generally more rough and harsher after something sweet, because your palate with sweetness is prepped for more sweetness and wants more sweetness, and it's not there. All you're going to get is the acidity and a little bit of bitterness. So it's easy. By all means, experiment.
Yeah.
Probably not the best pairing you can do.
Okay. Thank you for that. And the reason I ask that is because a lot of times when people drink a wine, they're always thinking of or asking, what can I pair with this? What goes with this? And they don't quite understand necessarily the rules of how to pair wine and food. So what you just mentioned and what you just shared with us was just an idea of some of the thought process behind why certain wines go well with certain food. It's not always sweet with sweet. That doesn't always work. And also, just because this smells sweet or aromatic, that doesn't mean the flavor is sweet, because there isn't residual sugar in it. So, yeah, it makes sense. How did you come up with the name? How did you select the name Borry for this?
That's a choice from the beginning. We started with 4 cuvées, and the name that was given to these 4 cuvées, 2 white and 2 red cuvées, is the name of where the grapes grow. So it's like in Burgundy, it's very traceability is easy. It's called that name because the vines grow in the area called here La Borry. Rhone, the area is called Grande. Clapas, the area is called Les Clapas, where the grapes grow, and Tabardone, the same.
Okay.
4
makes it easy.
4 classic cuvées.
Yeah. And that makes it easy. Some people come up with names. They're like, oh, this is my son's name, or this is my, this was the name of my first pet, or my grade school teacher, her name was this, so I named my wine after that. So for you to say, okay, this is the plot of land, that makes it easier for us, and also probably for you to know how to see, okay, this is the plot of land. You can see how it developed from year to year because you have it named, you have it sectioned off. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's the example is Burgundy really, where they have this cloak. It's a bit like wine, except that we blend the grapes, but that's the difference.
Yeah. Do you do any single varietal?
We don't. 90%, 10%, or 95%. We do it with Viognier, we do it with Syrah, and we've done it with Grenache, with our, which says 100%, it's 100% Grenache, yes, the Grenache.
Okay. And the reason I asked that is just because when you mention Burgundy and that's how they do it, they are all, single varietal. And just wondering how it is with the blending. Do you stick with the same blend or the same percentage each time, or does it depend on how certain grapes ripen throughout the season?
Oh, it depends really on how they ripen. Of course, yes. Never the same. You can't use the recipe from the previous year really to do it, because the weather is not the same, the time won't be the same, the quantities won't be the same. No, and that's the fun of it. That's you're going to do a blend which is very different.
And I guess unlike Burgundy, we're actually not allowed to do single varietals in order to so we play with the limits. There needs to be a little bit of something else, and that's how we're able to do our Viognier, our Syrah, and a little bit of our Grenache, because there's certain areas which lack clarity, but in general you cannot have a single varietal as a Côte du Rhône, Southern Côte du Rhône, or as a Baume de Venise specific appellation. So unlike Burgundy, we kind of have to blend as well.
Okay.
Which is why the Rhone Valley has so many different blends going on.
The southern Rhone Valley, because the northern Rhone Valley is
something else
different.
Yeah, it's different.
we have to blend to keep the appellation Rhone.
Do you feel like since you can do blends, that gives you a little more flexibility with the yield, the type, and the style of wines you create?
Yes, definitely yes. Because grapes have different qualities, different characters, and so we can do that with this to balance the wine. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.